Christmas Eve, 1991. The scent of fresh popcorn mingles with the metallic tang of new tools in the sporting goods section. Outside the Sears flagship store on State Street in Chicago, snow falls gently on a parking lot, packed with Oldsmobiles and Buicks. Inside, families wander through cathedral-like aisles lined with everything a household could desire. Craftsman wrenches gleam under fluorescent lights. Kenmore refrigerators hum their electric hymns. Die-Hard batteries promise immortality. $350 billion in annual revenue flows through registers across 868 department stores. An empire built on a simple promise. Everything you need under one roof at a fair price. The Sears catalog sits in 40 million American homes, more households than subscribe to cable television. The company employs more people than live in Cincinnati. Its stock price has tripled in a decade. Analysts call it untouchable. Management calls it destiny. Customers call it home. But this is merely the facade. Behind the gleaming appliances and the reassuring weight of the catalog in boardrooms high above Michigan Avenue, a cancer has already metastasized. The architects of this retail cathedral have stopped believing in retail. They've begun to worship something else entirely: financial engineering, diversification, the seductive logic that a company this powerful can succeed at anything, that selling stocks can be more profitable than selling socks, that the future belongs not to merchants, but to financiers. What customers see between the perfectly arranged displays is theater. The real Sears, the organism that built American suburbia, has already begun cannibalizing itself, because when you stop loving the business that made you, when you start believing your own propaganda about invincibility, you don't see the cliff until you're already falling. This is the story of how the largest retailer in American history forgot what made it great, how a company that invented modern retail destroyed itself by abandoning every principle that built it, how the empire that clothed America, housed America, and sold America to itself died slowly in the very temples it constructed. And it all began with a simple catalog. The catalog arrived every spring and fall like scripture. 700 pages of possibility, bound in glossy paper, heavy enough to kill a mouse. Children in farmhouses across Kansas circled toys with stubby pencils. Housewives in Tennessee marked pages with folded corners. Farmers in Montana calculated credit for next season's overalls. The Sears, Roebuck & Company catalog wasn't just a shopping tool, it was a portal. A promise that rural America could access the same goods as urban America. That distance and isolation could be conquered by mail order and railway. Richard Warren Sears understood something fundamental about late 19th century America. The country was expanding faster than infrastructure could support it. Millions lived beyond the reach of department stores. They needed goods. He needed customers. The equation was simple. Sears began selling watches through mail order in 1886. He was 23 years old, a railway station agent in North Redwood, Minnesota, with a talent for copywriting that bordered on hypnosis. His advertisements didn't just describe products. They seduced. They promised transformation. A watch wasn't merely a timepiece. It was reliability, status, the difference between arriving on time and being left behind by modernity itself. By 1893, he'd partnered with Alva Curtis Roebuck, a watchmaker who could repair what Sears sold. The Sears, Roebuck & Company catalog was born. 522 pages of everything from plows to pianos, from bicycles to baby carriages. The first edition sold to farmers who'd never seen most of these products in person, who trusted a printed page more than a traveling salesman, who believed in the American promise that hard work could buy comfort. The catalog grew, each edition thicker, each product line deeper. By 1900, the catalog offered over 20,000 items: furniture, clothing, firearms, musical instruments, prescription eyeglasses ordered by mail, even entire houses shipped in pieces by rail with instructions for assembly. The Sears Modern Homes program sold 70,000 complete houses between 1908 and 1940. Suburban neighborhoods rose from kits. The American dream delivered in crates. But Richard Sears knew something else. Mail order had limits. The future belonged to physical presence. In 1925, Sears opened its first retail store in Chicago. Not a warehouse, a palace. 12 stories of marble and brass designed to inspire awe. This wasn't shopping. This was pilgrimage. The retail stores exploded across America. Not in city centers, but in a new frontier, suburbia. As Americans fled dense urban cores for lawns and garages, Sears followed, built massive stores with parking lots the size of football fields, located them not downtown, but on highways, made them accessible by car, the new American temple. By 1931, there were 319 Sears stores. By 1941, 600. The Great Depression devastated competitors. Sears survived by understanding its customer, the working-class American who needed quality at a fair price, who couldn't afford luxury but refused to accept trash. Sears positioned itself in the gap. Good enough for dignity, cheap enough for reality. The products carried weight beyond their function. A Craftsman wrench wasn't just a tool, it was a lifetime guarantee. A Kenmore washing machine wasn't just an appliance. It was liberation from washboards and wringer mangles. A die-hard battery wasn't just automotive equipment, it was insurance against failure on a frozen morning. Sears didn't sell product, it sold reliability in an unreliable world. After World War II, as veterans returned to buy homes under the GI Bill, Sears was waiting. Every new suburb needed a Sears. The store became infrastructure, as essential as schools and churches. Families shopped there not out of preference, but out of habit. Out of trust built over generations. Grandmothers bought clothes there. Fathers bought tools there. Children received their first bicycles there. The cycle perpetuated itself. By 1970, Sears had become the largest retailer in the world. Annual revenue exceeded $10 billion. 820 stores operated across the United States. The company employed 340,000 people, owned more real estate than any private entity outside of railroads. The Sears Tower, completed in 1973, stood as the world's tallest building. 110 stories of steel and glass announcing permanence, dominance, inevitability. The catalog sat on coffee tables in 70 million homes. More American households owned a Sears catalog than owned a Bible. For many families, they served similar purposes: guidance, hope, a vision of a better life, accessible through faith and hard work and monthly payments. Inside the gleaming Sears stores of 1975, everything seemed perfect. Aisles organized with military precision, employees in pressed uniforms, registers humming with transactions, the smell of new tires in automotive, the weight of hand tools in the hardware section, the rustle of fabric in the clothing department. The empire appeared unshakable, immortal. But inside the Sears Tower, in boardrooms overlooking Chicago, a different conversation had begun, one that would metastasize into institutional cancer, one that questioned a fundamental assumption. If Sears could dominate retail, why not dominate everything? The seed of hubris had been planted. Behind the cheerful commercials and the friendly salespeople, Sears operated as a vertically integrated behemoth that would terrify modern antitrust regulators. The company didn't just sell products. It manufactured them, financed them, insured them, controlled every step from raw material to final sale. Sears owned factories, textile mills that produced clothing, appliance plants that built Kenmore refrigerators and washing machines, tool foundries that forged Craftsman wrenches and hammers. The company manufactured approximately 65% of what it sold. Competitors bought products from suppliers. Sears made its own. The Kenmore brand existed nowhere but Sears. Manufactured by Whirlpool under contract, but sold exclusively through Sears stores. Same with Craftsman tools, produced by various manufacturers but branded as Sears property. Die-hard batteries, made by multiple suppliers but only available at Sears. The company created artificial scarcity. If you wanted these specific brands, trusted by your father and his father, you had one option: Sears. The business model resembled a closed ecosystem. Buy a Kenmore refrigerator on a Sears credit card. Purchase a service contract through Sears Insurance. Get it repaired by Sears technicians using Sears parts. Finance the whole transaction through Sears banking division. Every dollar stayed within the empire. This wasn't retail. This was economic feudalism. Sears Financial Services employed more people than some Fortune 500 companies. The credit card business alone generated billions in revenue. Americans carried 40 million Sears credit cards by 1980. More than Visa, more than MasterCard. The cards sat in wallets next to driver's licenses. For working-class families, Sears credit often represented their only access to capital. Want a new water heater, but don't have $800? Sears would finance it. Need winter coats for 3 children, but it's only September? Sears would extend credit. The monthly payments felt manageable. The interest rates, less so. But the credit business did something more insidious. It created dependency. Once a family carried Sears debt, they remained loyal. Switching to a competitor meant paying off the balance. Most couldn't, so they kept shopping at Sears, kept accumulating more debt. The credit card transformed from a convenience into a chain. The insurance division, Allstate, had been founded by Sears in 1931. By 1980, Allstate stood as the second largest property and casualty insurer in America. The dividend payments flowed upward. billions of dollars annually that subsidized retail operations. Sears had also created the Discover card in 1985. Not content with dominating store credit, the company wanted to compete with Visa and MasterCard directly. Dean Witter. Reynolds, acquired in 1981, provided investment services. You could buy stocks in the same building where you bought socks. The same sales floor that sold power tools now housed financial advisors. Shopping and investing merged into one convenient location. Edward Brennan, who became CEO in 1986, pushed diversification harder. His vision: transform Sears from a retailer into a financial services conglomerate that happened to sell appliances. Create a one-stop shop where customers could buy a house, furnish it, insure it, and invest their retirement savings, all under the Sears umbrella. Revenue from non-retail operations surpassed retail by 1988. Insurance and financial services contributed more profit than all the department stores combined. Wall Street applauded. Analysts upgraded the stock. Sears was evolving, modernizing, becoming something more sophisticated than a mere retailer. But this evolution required feeding. Allstate demanded capital to underwrite policies. Dean Witter needed liquidity to clear trades. Discover Card required billions to extend credit. The financial services divisions consumed cash like blast furnaces consume coal. Where did this capital come from? The retail stores. Sears began extracting value from its retail operations to fund financial expansion. Store maintenance budgets shrank. Employee hours were cut. Inventory investments declined. The stores that generated the original wealth now existed to feed different beasts. Store managers noticed first. Requests for renovations denied. Budgets for seasonal hiring frozen. Instructions to reduce inventory and increase turns. Make do with less. Squeeze harder. Every dollar saved in retail could be deployed in financial services, where returns were higher. The Sears catalog, once sacred, faced similar pressure. Production costs kept rising. Paper, printing, postage. By the mid-1980s, management questioned its value. Why spend $300 million annually on catalogs when that capital could underwrite insurance policies? In January 1993, Sears discontinued the general merchandise catalog. 107 years of continuous publication ended. The announcement shocked employees and customers alike. The catalog wasn't just a sales tool, it was the foundational myth, the original innovation that built the empire. Discontinuing it felt like denying your own history. Management framed the decision as pragmatic. The catalog had become unprofitable. Resources needed reallocation. But the real reason was simpler. The people running Sears no longer believed in retail. They believed in financial engineering. The catalog disappeared from millions of homes. That spring, mailboxes stayed empty. Children couldn't circle toys. Farmers couldn't order overalls. The ritual ended. For many Americans, particularly in rural areas, losing the catalog felt like losing a limb. Sears had been accessible through mail order when no store existed within 200 miles. Now that access evaporated. By 1995, walking into many Sears stores felt like entering a time capsule. Fixtures from 1970 hadn't been updated. Carpet worn through to concrete in high-traffic areas. Lighting flickered, paint peeled, air conditioning struggled. The contrast with competitors became stark. Visit a Target, bright and modern. Visit a Walmart, massive and efficient. Then visit Sears, dim and deteriorating. The merchandise told the same story. Competitors refreshed inventory constantly. Sears stores carried the same products for years. Fashion trends changed. Sears clothing racks remained frozen in previous decades. Electronics evolved. Sears' electronics department looked increasingly obsolete. Customer service deteriorated in parallel. Sears had once prided itself on knowledgeable floor staff, employees who understood products, who could advise customers, who built relationships over years. This required investment in training and retention. Financial pressure led to cuts. Experienced employees were expensive. They were replaced with minimum wage part-timers. Turnover accelerated. Knowledge evaporated. The beast was feeding on itself. Each quarter required hitting profit targets, meeting analyst expectations, delivering returns to shareholders. The easiest way to boost short-term profits involved cutting costs. Maintenance deferred, inventory reduced, staff minimized, but they destroyed long-term value. A store with peeling paint and broken fixtures sent a message that Sears didn't care, that the company viewed its retail operations as cash cows to be milked, not businesses to be nurtured. Customers felt this, sensed the decline, started shopping elsewhere, and the competitors weren't sleeping. 1962 marked the year everything changed, though Sears didn't notice. 3 companies opened their first stores that year: Walmart, Kmart, Target. They seemed insignificant, regional discounters with primitive operations. Sears barely registered their existence. The largest retailer in the world doesn't worry about startups. Sam Walton built his first Walmart in Rogers, Arkansas, a 5-and-dime store with a simple premise: lower prices through operational efficiency. He studied Sears obsessively, admired its logistics, its scale, its private brands. Then he built something better. Walmart invested in technology Sears considered unnecessary: computerized inventory systems, barcode scanners, satellite communications linking every store, data analytics that tracked every transaction. While Sears stores still used manual inventory counts and paper records, Walmart knew exactly what sold in every store in real time. This information advantage was devastating. Walmart could identify trends instantly, adjust inventory dynamically, restock winners, discontinue losers. The feedback loop operated at computer speed. Sears' feedback loop operated at human speed. Walmart also pioneered a distribution model Sears couldn't match: massive regional warehouses positioned to serve clusters of stores, trucks running constant loops. A product arrived at a Walmart warehouse and shipped to stores within 24 hours. At Sears, products sat in warehouses for weeks. But Walmart's real advantage was focus. Sam Walton built a retail company. Just retail. Every decision, every investment, every hire served one purpose: sell goods more efficiently than anyone else. There was no distraction, no insurance division, no investment services, just relentless focus on operational excellence. By 1990, Walmart's revenue exceeded Sears. The company that didn't exist 30 years prior had surpassed the century-old empire. Target took a different approach. Also founded in 1962, Target positioned itself upmarket from Walmart: cleaner stores, better design, slightly higher prices for significantly better presentation. Target understood something Sears had forgotten: shopping is emotional. The environment matters. Target stores gleamed: wide aisles, bright lighting, attractive displays. Shopping at Target felt aspirational. Shopping at Sears felt obligatory. Target attracted younger customers, families starting out, people who wanted value but also wanted taste. These competitors shared one crucial characteristic: they were purpose-built for the modern era. Their stores were new, their systems were digital, their operations were optimized. They had no legacy infrastructure to maintain. They could move fast because they carried no weight. Sears carried enormous weight: 868 department stores, many built decades prior. Massive warehouses designed for catalog operations, computer systems programmed in COBOL by engineers who'd retired. Updating this infrastructure would cost billions, billions that were being diverted to financial services. The Sears real estate portfolio became a paradox. The company owned premium locations. This real estate was valuable, but the stores themselves were obsolete, too large, too expensive to operate. Built for a different era of retail, competitors were building smaller, more efficient stores: 30,000 square feet instead of 100,000. Lower rent, lower utilities, easier to manage. Sears was locked into massive spaces that cost fortunes to heat, cool, and staff. As Sears declined, malls suffered. A dying anchor store poisoned surrounding retailers. Customers who once visited the mall specifically for Sears stopped coming. Foot traffic declined. Small retailers struggled. Many stores were bleeding cash. Logical business decisions would have involved closing unprofitable locations, consolidating to strong markets, investing in the best stores while abandoning the worst. But Sears couldn't. Each store closure meant admitting failure. Management preferred to delay, to hope, to believe that somehow things would improve. They wouldn't improve, because the fundamental problem wasn't the stores. It was the strategy, or rather, the lack of one. Sears in the 1990s had no clear identity. Was it a department store? A discount retailer, an appliance specialist, a financial services company that happened to sell goods? Different executives had different answers. Different divisions pursued different goals. The company was everything and nothing, trying to serve every customer and satisfying none. Walmart knew what it was: the lowest price retailer. Target knew what it was: affordable style. Home Depot knew what it was: the warehouse for home improvement. Each competitor had clarity, crystal clear positioning that informed every decision. Sears had confusion. The appliance department still performed well, but the clothing department couldn't compete with specialty retailers. The electronics department couldn't match Best Buy's selection. The tool section fought with Home Depot and Lowe's. Every category faced specialists who did it better. The logical response would have been to choose. Pick categories where Sears could win. Exit categories where it couldn't. Focus resources on defensible positions. Instead, Sears tried to compete in all categories, spreading resources across dozens of departments, winning in none. The company was dying the death of 1,000 cuts, each department bleeding slowly, no single wound fatal, but collectively terminal. Arthur Martinez became CEO in 1995, brought in from Saks Fifth Avenue to save the retail operation. He saw the problem clearly. Sears had neglected stores while pursuing financial diversification. The solution seemed obvious: divest non-retail businesses, return focus to core operations. Martinez led the effort to spin off Allstate in 1995. Dean Witter was also divested, merged with Morgan Stanley in 1997. Wall Street applauded. The stock price rose. Martinez used the capital to renovate stores, launched the softer side of Sears campaign, trying to reposition the company as fashion-forward. The campaign had limited success. Sears' reputation as a place to buy tools and appliances was too entrenched. Customers didn't associate Sears with fashion. Trying to change that perception required sustained investment and patience. Wall Street provided neither. Martinez also faced internal resistance. Sears had a culture problem. Decades of employees who remembered the glory days, who resented change, who believed the company deserved success simply for being Sears. Transforming this culture proved impossible. By 2000, Martinez had stabilized the patient, stopped the bleeding, but he hadn't cured the disease. Sears remained adrift, still trying to be everything, still lacking focus, still losing market share to specialized competitors. And then came the man who would finish what decline had started. In November 2004, Eddie Lampert's hedge fund orchestrated the merger of Sears with Kmart. The announcement shocked the retail industry. Kmart had recently emerged from bankruptcy. Sears was struggling but stable. Why would these two damaged retailers combine? Lampert had a vision. He believed both companies possessed valuable assets being destroyed by poor management. Real estate, brands, customer data. Properly managed, these assets could generate enormous value. Not through retail operations, through financial engineering. Lampert viewed retail through a hedge fund manager's lens. Companies were collections of assets to be optimized for shareholder value. Stores were real estate holdings. Inventory was capital allocation. Employees were expenses to be minimized. This perspective made perfect sense in finance. In retail, it was poison. The merger created Sears Holdings Corporation, 2,500 stores combined, revenue exceeding $50 billion annually. On paper, a massive empire. In reality, two dying animals strapped together, sinking faster. Lampert became chairman. He had no retail experience. His background was finance, leveraged buyouts, distressed asset investing. He'd made billions identifying undervalued companies, acquiring them cheaply, extracting value. Retail was just another asset class. His first major decision revealed his thinking: cut costs. Aggressively, immediately. Thousands of employees laid off. Store maintenance budgets slashed. Marketing reduced to minimal level. Capital expenditures frozen. Every dollar saved fell to the bottom line. Short-term profits improved. Stock price rose. But retail doesn't work like finance. You can't cut your way to growth. Stores require investment, maintenance, innovation. Employees need training. Customers need reasons to visit. Lampert dismissed these arguments as old thinking. He believed efficiency and cost control would prevail. He implemented a radical organizational structure, split Sears Holdings into more than 30 business units. Each unit operated independently, competed for capital allocation. The theory, internal competition, would breed excellence. The reality, internal warfare. Units hoarded information, refused to cooperate, fought over resources. Energy that should have been directed at external competitors was wasted on internal conflict. Lampert ran the company from Florida, rarely visited stores, conducted meetings via video conference, made decisions based on spreadsheets and data analytics. He believed physical presence was unnecessary, that retail could be managed remotely through metrics and algorithms. Store conditions deteriorated rapidly. No renovations, no updates. As competitors modernized, Sears stores decayed. Leaking roofs went unrepaired. Broken fixtures stayed broken. Bathrooms became disgusting. The message to customers was clear: we don't care. Inventory management collapsed. Stores received less stock. Shelves emptied. Customers looking for products found bare racks. The frustration drove them to competitors. Once they left, they rarely returned. Employee morale cratered, wages cut, hours reduced, benefits eliminated. The experienced staff that remained from better days were demoralized, watching the company they'd served for decades being gutted by a hedge fund manager who never set foot in stores. Many quit. Those who stayed did so out of necessity, not loyalty. Customer service became a joke. Undertrained, underpaid, part-time employees couldn't help customers, didn't know products, didn't care. Why would they? Sears paid minimum wage with no benefits, offered no training, provided no reason to excel. The result was predictable. Customers avoided asking for help because they knew they wouldn't receive any. Lampert sold assets to generate cash. The famous Sears Tower was sold and leased back under unfavorable terms. Profitable store locations were sold to Seritage Growth Properties, a real estate investment trust Lampert controlled. Sears then paid rent to occupy its former property. This created an accounting maneuver that temporarily boosted the stock price, but the long-term cost was crippling rent obligations. The Craftsman brand, sacred to Sears' identity, was sold to Stanley Black & Decker in 2017 for $900 million. 160 years of brand equity, built through quality and customer trust, sold to generate quarterly cash flow. The tools that built Sears' reputation would now be available at Lowe's and Home Depot. The exclusive advantage that kept customers loyal surrendered. Lampert borrowed billions against remaining assets, took out loans using store inventory and real estate as collateral. The debt piled up. Interest payments consumed what little cash flow remained. Sears was being leveraged to death. But Lampert had one more trick. He personally lent money to Sears through his hedge fund, charged interest, made sure his loans were senior secured debt. If Sears filed bankruptcy, Lampert would be first in line to recover his money. He was positioning to profit from the collapse he was orchestrating. Store closures accelerated, dozens per year, then hundreds. Each closure meant liquidation sales, desperate signs screaming, "Everything must go." The stores dying weren't in bad locations. They were starved of investment, given no chance to succeed. Then, blamed for failing. Loyal customers watched with sadness. Stores they'd shopped at for 50 years, gone. The building sitting empty, windows soaped over, parking lots cracked and weedy. Shopping at Sears in 2017 felt apocalyptic. Walk into a store and the abandonment was physical. Half the lights turned off to save electricity. Entire sections closed. Merchandise scattered randomly. No organization, no logic. Racks of clothing from 3 seasons ago marked down 70%. Still, nobody buying. The few remaining employees looked haunted, working in a dying store knowing their job would evaporate soon. Some had worked at Sears for 30 years, watched the company's decline from inside, powerless to stop it. The appliance department, once Sears' crown jewel, became a graveyard. Kenmore refrigerators sat dusty and unplugged. No salespeople to help. No delivery service you could trust. Why buy an appliance from a company that might not exist next month? What good is a warranty from a bankrupt retailer? Online competitors destroyed Sears' appliance business. Amazon sold Kenmore products often cheaper than Sears itself. Sears had built an e-commerce presence, but half-heartedly. The website looked like it was designed in 2005. Orders frequently went wrong. Customer service was non-existent. Lampert insisted the company would transform into a digital-first retailer, that physical stores were unnecessary. He pointed to Amazon's success, but Amazon built digital infrastructure over decades, invested billions in logistics. Sears had none of that, just a terrible website and an empty promise. The truth was, Lampert didn't want to save Sears. He wanted to extract everything valuable and let the corpse collapse. Real estate sold, brands sold, assets stripped. And when bankruptcy finally came, he'd be positioned to profit from liquidation. In October 2018, Sears Holdings filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The company that had been worth $350 billion in market capitalization at its peak was insolvent. The bankruptcy filing shocked precisely nobody. It had been inevitable for years. What was shocking was how completely Sears had been gutted, how a company with such powerful brands, such valuable real estate, such deep customer loyalty could be destroyed so efficiently. Lampert made one last play. He offered to buy Sears out of bankruptcy through his hedge fund. The bankruptcy court approved in February 2019. He emerged owning a smaller Sears, 425 stores instead of thousands, most of the debt extinguished, a cleaned-up balance sheet, the perfect crime. Destroy a company through mismanagement, then buy it from yourself at bankruptcy prices. But even this zombie Sears couldn't survive. Stores continued closing through 2019, 20, 21. By 2022, Fewer than 20 Sears stores remained operating in the entire United States. Stories like Sears are silent warnings, echoes of hubris that reverberate across industries. If you appreciate these forensic examinations of corporate mortality and want to understand the history behind the ruins, subscribe to the channel. Your support allows these investigations to continue. The stores that remained open through 2019 and 2020 operated in a state of suspended animation, neither alive nor fully dead. Lights still flickered on each morning, doors still unlocked, but walking inside felt like touring a mausoleum. The merchandise was absurd. Summer clothing in December, Christmas decorations in March. No coherent inventory strategy, just whatever the automated ordering system had sent, or, more accurately, whatever overstock liquidators had dumped. Appliances sat in dark corners, gathering dust. A customer lucky enough to find a working refrigerator on display couldn't actually buy it. The model was discontinued, or out of stock, or available for order, but delivery would take 6 weeks, by which time Sears might not exist. The tool section, once sacred ground, where fathers taught sons about quality and craftsmanship, was a shell. Craftsman tools were now sold everywhere else. The remaining Sears stores carried cheap imports, tools that looked like Craftsman knockoffs but broke after first use. Clothing departments were surreal. Entire sections roped off with yellow caution tape. Racks pushed together haphazardly, sizes mixed randomly, prices marked down repeatedly until they were gibberish. Nobody buying even at 90% off. The employees who remained were survivors, people who couldn't find other work, or who lived in small towns where Sears was the only retailer. They showed up, went through motions, knew the end approached. The bathrooms told the real story. Broken fixtures, empty soap dispensers, toilets that didn't flush, graffiti on walls, the smell of mildew and despair. A company that won't maintain bathrooms won't maintain anything. These bathrooms announced to customers, "We've given up." Walking through these dying stores triggered profound sadness in people of a certain age. Baby boomers who remembered shopping at Sears with their parents, who received their first bicycle from the catalog, who bought their first car battery at Sears Automotive, who furnished their first apartment with Kenmore appliances. This wasn't just a store closing, it was childhood dying. Some customers cried, actually wept while walking through clearance sales, not for the products, for the memories, for what the store represented. The closing sales were brutal theater. Signs screaming 40, 60, 80% off. Liquidation companies hired to extract every penny. They'd mark prices up first, then mark them down to create fake discounts. Customers who knew Sears' real prices weren't fooled. Vultures descended on closing stores. Liquidators bought fixtures, shelving, mannequins, cash registers. Everything was for sale. The bones picked clean by professionals who did this for a living. Local news crews filmed the final days, interviewed elderly customers, sharing memories. "I bought my wedding ring here in 1963. My father worked here for 40 years. This was where everyone shopped." The stories were remarkably similar. Loss, nostalgia, incomprehension at how something so permanent could disappear. The final employees received minimal notice. A corporate email. Store closing in 90 days. File for unemployment. Good luck, no severance for most. 40 years of service rewarded with 60 days notice and a cardboard box for personal items. Some employees had nowhere to go. Older workers with retail-specific skills. In small towns where Sears closing meant no other major employer existed, they faced unemployment at 55, 60, 65, too old to retrain, too young to retire. The real estate told different stories. Some closed Sears stores were demolished within months, developers building modern shopping centers. Other locations sat empty for years. Massive buildings nobody wanted. Too large, too expensive to repurpose. Monuments to retail's past slowly decaying. Malls that anchored around Sears suffered devastating effect. When the anchor store closes, mall traffic collapses. Small retailers can't survive without foot traffic. The death spiral accelerates. Some former Sears buildings became homeless shelters, community centers, indoor flea markets. Others became zombie commercial real estate, owned by banks after foreclosure, sitting empty, racking up property taxes, deteriorating from neglect, eventually demolished. The cultural impact extended beyond economics. Sears had been infrastructure, like utilities or roads. Its disappearance created voids. Rural areas lost their only department store. Small towns lost their largest employer. Communities lost gathering places. Older Americans lost something else. Continuity. The store where they'd shopped for 50 years, gone. This disruption of routine was destabilizing. Where do you buy work boots now? Where do you get your lawnmower serviced? The familiar rhythms of life disrupted. Sears' automotive centers, once ubiquitous, vanished completely. Oil changes, tire installation, battery replacement. When the automotive centers closed, small towns lost essential services. The catalog's disappearance 32 years earlier had been a warning. Management killed the very thing that built the company. The catalog represented commitment to serving all Americans, urban and rural, rich and poor. Discontinuing it signaled that Sears no longer cared about accessibility, only about quarterly profits. The catalog had been more than a sales tool. It was democratization. A farmer in Montana could order the same products as a businessman in Manhattan. When Sears killed the catalog, it abandoned rural America. 2020 brought COVID-19. The pandemic devastated retail. But for Sears, already on life support, it was merely the final push. Stores closed during lockdowns never reopened. The last breath escape. By 2021, Sears existed as a ghost. Technically still operating. A few dozen stores scattered across America, but functionally dead. A brand name attached to nothing. An empire reduced to zombie locations, serving no purpose except postponing final liquidation. The website remained active. You could technically order products, but fulfillment was chaos. Orders cancelled without explanation. Delivery dates missed by months. There was no company left, just automated systems running on their own momentum. Former employees gathered online in Facebook groups and forums, shared stories, posted pictures of better days, lamented the destruction, mourned the company they'd loved. These digital spaces became grief support groups for workers who'd devoted careers to a company that had discarded them like defective merchandise. The bankruptcy proceedings dragged on for years. Lawyers feeding on the corpse, creditors fighting over scraps, pension funds trying to recover money that had been siphoned off. The legal complexity of unwinding a century-old empire was extraordinary and expensive. The only winners were the attorneys. Lampert himself remained wealthy. His hedge fund had extracted billions from Sears through various mechanisms. The bankruptcy protected him from lawsuits. He'd played the game perfectly, destroyed a company, profited from the destruction, faced no consequences. Some attempted to hold him accountable. Lawsuits alleged malfeasance, but proving intentional destruction is difficult when you can claim incompetence. The courts largely accepted his narrative. The cultural reckoning was harsher. Lampert became a symbol of everything wrong with modern capitalism. A financier who destroyed an American institution for personal profit, who viewed companies as mere asset collections to be optimized and discarded, who had no loyalty to employees, customers, or communities. Business schools studied Sears as a case in corporate failure. The consensus: Sears died from multiple causes. Neglect of core retail operations, pursuit of financial diversification, failure to modernize, but ultimately from lack of leadership that cared about the business itself. Eddie Lampert wasn't the only villain. He was merely the final chapter. Sears began dying in the 1980s when management decided selling insurance was more profitable than selling appliances, when they stopped investing in stores, when they killed the catalog, when they lost focus on what made them great. Arthur Martinez tried to reverse the decline. He was too late. The rot had spread too deep. Decades of neglect can't be reversed in a few years, especially when Wall Street demands quarterly profits. The fundamental problem was that Sears forgot its own origin story. Richard Warren Sears built a company based on serving customers, on providing value, on being accessible, on guaranteeing quality. Every decision served the customer. Every innovation increased accessibility. His successors forgot this, began serving shareholders instead, maximizing quarterly earnings instead of long-term value, cutting costs instead of investing in excellence, extracting cash instead of building infrastructure. They confused the purpose of the business, thought it existed to generate profits. It didn't. It existed to serve customers. Profits were the reward for serving customers well. When companies forget why they exist, they begin dying. Sears spent 40 years forgetting, 40 years prioritizing financial engineering over customer service, 40 years making decisions that boosted short-term metrics while destroying long-term viability. The decline was slow, but inevitable. Other retailers avoided Sears' fate by staying focused. Walmart never diversified into insurance. Target never launched an investment services division. Costco never forgot that its purpose was serving members, not shareholders. These companies understood that retail success requires total commitment. Sears also suffered from success amnesia. The company became so large, so dominant, that management believed success was permanent. That market share couldn't be lost. that customers would stay loyal regardless of service quality. This arrogance is common in failing companies. They confuse past success with future guarantee. The lessons from Sears' collapse are simple but difficult to execute. Stay focused on core business. Invest in operations constantly. Never believe you're too big to fail. Respect competitors. Listen to customers. Treat employees well. These principles sound obvious, but most failing companies violate them. Perhaps the saddest aspect of Sears' death is how unnecessary it was. The company possessed enormous advantages in 2005. Valuable real estate, trusted brands, loyal customers, experienced employees, sufficient capital. The pieces existed to compete and thrive. They just needed competent leadership committed to retail. Instead, Sears got a hedge fund manager who viewed retail as an asset extraction opportunity, who believed cost-cutting could substitute for investment, who thought retail could be managed remotely through spreadsheets, who had no respect for the business, the employees, or the customers. The result was predictable. Sears died, not from external competition, from internal sabotage. Today, December 24th, 2025, you can still technically visit a Sears. 11 stores remain open across the United States. These aren't stores. They're archaeological sites, ruins that happen to have lights and cash registers. Walk into the Sears in Burbank, California. One of the survivors. The parking lot is mostly empty on a Saturday afternoon. Inside, the vast space feels abandoned, even though it's technically open. Half the lights are off. Entire sections are barricaded with temporary walls. The few remaining aisles display merchandise that looks like overstock from liquidation sales elsewhere. The appliance section contains perhaps 20 units total. A handful of refrigerators, some washing machines. No salespeople visible, no product information, no delivery service advertised. The clothing racks hold bizarre assortments. Winter coats in California, swimwear in November. Sizes scattered randomly, no organization by style or color or brand, just chaos. Perhaps 30 customers browse the entire store, mostly elderly, people shopping out of habit, because they've always shopped at Sears. Or because this is what Saturday afternoon means to them, wandering aisles they've wandered for 50 years, even though those aisles no longer offer anything worth buying. One employee sits at a register reading her phone. She doesn't look up when customers approach. Doesn't greet anyone. Why would she? This job pays minimum wage, offers no benefits, provides no future. She's waiting for the inevitable closure announcement. The bathroom, when you find it, is exactly what you'd expect. Broken stall doors, no soap, no paper towels, toilet hasn't been scrubbed in weeks. The smell alone encourages customers to leave. This is the final indignity. A store that won't maintain bathrooms has surrendered all pretense of serving customers, yet the store remains open. Why? The lease hasn't expired. Closing requires money for liquidation. Easier to let it bleed slowly. Keep the lights on. Pretend normalcy. Delay the final admission of defeat. Visit the former Sears Tower in Chicago, now called the Willis Tower, after a naming rights deal that Sears couldn't afford. 110 stories that once announced permanence. The observation deck still draws tourists, but they're not there to celebrate Sears. They're there for the view. Walk State Street near the old flagship store. The building that served as Sears' retail temple for generations was sold years ago. Converted to condominiums, the ground floor now houses a Target. The irony would be funny if it wasn't so tragic. Target occupies the space where Sears once dominated. Drive through suburban America. Every town of reasonable size once had a Sears. Those buildings tell different stories now. Some were demolished, replaced by modern retail centers. Others sit empty, massive concrete boxes slowly decaying, windows broken, parking lots cracked and overgrown, for lease signs faded from years of sun. In rural areas, the loss is most acute. Small towns that had one department store. That store was Sears. When it closed, no replacement came. The nearest alternative is now 50 miles away. People who relied on local shopping must drive hours or order online. The fabric of community commerce destroyed. Some former Sears locations became churches. The vast spaces that once sold refrigerators now host Sunday services. The irony isn't lost on congregations. They worship in cathedrals built for a different faith. Consumer capitalism, a religion that failed its believers. The most poignant remnants are in people's homes. The Kenmore refrigerator that's run flawlessly for 25 years. Still cooling, still reliable, proving that old Sears products were built to last. Newer appliances break within 5 years, but the Kenmore persists. A monument to what quality used to mean. The Craftsman wrench in the garage, bought in 1972. Used thousands of times, never broken. Still carries the lifetime warranty. still could theoretically be replaced at Sears. Except Sears doesn't exist. And Craftsman belongs to Stanley Black & Decker now. The warranty is meaningless, but the wrench remains, outliving the company that guaranteed it. Some people still have old Sears catalogs stored in attics or basements. They pull them out occasionally, flip through pages advertising products from 40 years ago. The prices seem absurd, but adjust for inflation and they're reasonable. What strikes people looking at old catalogs is the quality, the detail, the care in presentation. Sears wasn't just selling products, it was selling aspiration. The catalog showed you a better life, and Sears made that aspiration accessible. Modern retail doesn't work that way. Amazon sells products, but there's no aspiration, no narrative, just search bars and algorithms. Walmart competes on price, but there's no romance. Target attempts aspiration, but it's shallow. Curated Instagram aesthetics, not the deep functionality Sears offered. Sears offered something retail today doesn't. Complete solutions backed by genuine guarantees. You could buy every appliance for a kitchen, every tool for a workshop, every component for a home, all from one place, all backed by the same company, all guaranteed to work. That integration, that trust, is extinct. The brand names persist as zombie intellectual property. Kenmore is owned by Transform SR Brands. Still technically exists, but it's not the same Kenmore. The supply chain changed, the quality standards lowered. The name remains, the substance is gone. Craftsman tools are everywhere now. Lowe's, Home Depot, Ace Hardware, Amazon, Stanley Black & Decker slaps the Craftsman name on products that would have horrified the original manufacturers. The lifetime warranty still exists, but the tools break so frequently it's meaningless. This is the final insult. Sears is dead, but its corpse is being desecrated. The brands it built through quality and service are now attached to mediocre products, sold by companies that never understood what made those brands valuable. The names persist, the substance is extinct. Eddie Lampert remains wealthy, lives in Florida, runs his hedge fund, occasionally makes statements about retail transformation, as if he has credibility, as if he didn't destroy one of America's greatest companies. He faces no consequences, no criminal charges, no regulatory sanctions. The bankruptcy courts protected him. In America, failure is forgiven. Even failure that destroys hundreds of thousands of jobs, even failure that devastates communities. Former Sears employees see his continued success and feel rage. They lost jobs, lost pensions, lost careers. He made billions. The injustice is profound, but not unusual. This is how American capitalism operates. Executives extract value, workers bear losses, the system protects the wealthy, discards the vulnerable. The greatest tragedy of Sears isn't its financial collapse. It's the loss of possibility. Sears represented an idea that retail could serve everyone, that quality didn't require wealth, that American companies could compete on value and service rather than just price. Modern retail abandoned that idea. Walmart competes on price alone. Quality is sacrificed for cost. Amazon competes on convenience. Everything delivered, nothing experienced, no human interaction, no community, just transactions. Sears in its prime offered something different. The experience of shopping, of browsing, of being helped by knowledgeable employees, of trusting that what you bought would last, of knowing the company would stand behind products for years. That retail experience is extinct, not because it wasn't profitable, but because it required patience, investment, commitment to long-term excellence over short-term gains. Walking through one of the 11 remaining Sears stores is like visiting a mass grave. These aren't stores. They're monuments to corporate failure, to hubris, to the consequences of forgetting your purpose. The few customers still shopping there are ghosts too, people disconnected from modern retail, who still believe Sears exists as it did, who wander aisles looking for products that aren't there, helped by employees who've given up, in buildings that should have been demolished years ago. This is what remains of $350 billion in market value. This is the archaeology of American retail, the ruins of an empire built on catalog pages and customer trust, destroyed by financial engineering and indifference. The catalog disappeared in 1993, 32 years ago now. An entire generation has grown up never knowing the Sears catalog. For them, Sears is just a fading brand name, something their grandparents mention, not a lived experience. In another generation, Sears will be completely forgotten. The buildings demolished, the brands diluted beyond recognition, the employees dead or too old to remember. No one will know that this company once defined American retail, once employed hundreds of thousands, once served every community from Alaska to Florida. All that will remain are historians' footnotes, business school case studies, cautionary tales about hubris and poor leadership. The human stories, the community connections, the cultural significance will evaporate. This is the final tragedy of corporate death. Companies aren't just economic entities. They're cultural institutions, social fabric. When Sears died, it took with it a piece of American identity. The idea that retail could be egalitarian, that quality was universal, that trust between company and customer mattered. Modern retail killed that idea, atomized shopping into individual transactions, removed human connection, reduced everything to price and convenience. Maybe that's progress, maybe that's efficiency, but something was lost, something that made commerce feel like community. Something that made shopping feel like more than just consumption. Sears represented that something, and now it's gone. The few remaining stores will close eventually. This year, next year, soon. The last registers will process their final transactions. The last employees will receive their final paychecks. The last lights will be turned off. The last doors locked. And America will have one fewer piece of its retail history. One fewer reminder of when companies built monuments to serving customers. When retail meant more than logistics and algorithm, when a brand name meant lifetime quality, when a catalog could change your life. What remains of a $350 billion dream? 11 dying stores across America, a handful of zombie brands wearing trusted names, mountains of legal documents in bankruptcy courts, thousands of empty buildings slowly decaying, millions of people who remember shopping there, who remember when Sears was invincible, who remember when it mattered. And in garages across America, Craftsman wrenches still work. Kenmore refrigerators still hum. Die-Hard batteries still start cars. Physical proof that Sears once built things to last. Those products will outlive the company that made them. They'll work long after the last Sears store closes. Long after the brand names are forgotten. Long after anyone remembers what the company stood for. They are the monuments, the tombstones, the archaeology of an empire that clothed America, housed America, and promised America could be better. The empire that forgot its own promise and paid the price.